Good evening, sci-fi movie fans, and welcome to a special edition of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. This is our top 10 sci-fi movies countdown, and I have Jay here with me. And we're going to just let you know right off the top that all these movies are very subjective. So what I like, he might not like. What he likes, I might not like. And that's why it's so much fun doing these kinds of lists. We know you probably won't agree with a lot of our choices, so please tell us in the comment section why you think we're out to lunch, or, yeah, no, I agree with you guys, because we'd love to hear from you. You can email me your ideas about these lists at movieguysci-fi@gmail.com. But otherwise, Jay, are you ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to do this very similar to the way Matt Nost and John Roca do the top 10 countdown on Collider. So, guys, I hope you take this as a compliment that we're stealing your idea, not as copyright infringement. So here we go. So I'm going to start with my number 10 film, and I know this is going to be really, really contentious with some of you out there, but it's Waterworld from 1995. So I know a lot of people don't like Waterworld. I really liked the premise. So global warming happened, the polar ice caps melted, and pretty much all of the Earth, with the exception of a couple really tall mountains, were underwater. Now, we don't know this for the first, I'm going to say, 50 to 60 minutes of the film. And then he goes down to get some dirt so he can plant something, and we see the Statue of Liberty. We see that the cities are underwater, and this is Earth, which was a really cool reveal halfway through the movie. So some people say it was a little boring to start, but then you get the idea, oh my God, they're actually talking about Earth. What do you think about this movie, Jason?
I thought the movie had a great amount of potential because you really were starting this whole different world, this whole different fantasy realm, and the potential was to go so many different directions. I mean, in the end analysis, I don't think it really came together. It got a little chaotic in my point of view. However, I think the potential was there to go all kinds of different directions. I really enjoyed actually the Kevin Costner's character, how he was genetically changing, how he's becoming this sea person, and if they'd actually explored more of that, his origins and where he came from, and the secrets that could have unleashed, I think that would have been a great story arc to add. That's just some missed potential.
And I agree with you 100% on that. Actually, the piece of this movie that I didn't like the most was the actual ending. I thought it really fell short when they were on top of, I can't remember which mountain it was now because it's been a long time since
Probably
I've seen it, but Everest, and there was the plaque up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, really? That's how you're going to end it? Yeah. I would have loved to have seen a bloody murder and like everybody dies. I'm still waiting for that movie that everybody dies at the end, because I think this would have been the one you could have done it. And then people would have talked about this movie for centuries. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it's fallen into that category of, wow, that was a really bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree. It was really a social message in there about consumerism versus, conservationists, really. And the conservationists came off looking pretty weak, and the consumers came off looking really aggressive. The smokers, they're killing everything in sight. They're burning off oil. They're destroying all natural resources with no consideration of the future. It was a very interesting message, and it really came across as one side or the other in this debate. There was really no in-between ground, which I found funny.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to go into my number 9, which is Aliens from 1986. So this was actually the first Aliens movie that I saw. I missed the original Alien. And so I started this whole world with Aliens from 1986. After I saw the movie in the theaters and I watched it and I thought it was a standalone, I found out there was a prequel. Went back to watch the prequel and actually hated it. Yeah. I thought the first one was awful. But this movie, again, I just finished the trilogy of Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Whole bunch of other sci-fi stuff was coming out, and Aliens hit me in a completely different way because of the cinematography, the special effects, just the alien coming out of the girl's stomach. Yeah. It was all very revolutionary at its time. Mm-hmm. Love the lead actor. Oh my God,
Sigourney Weaver.
Thank you. She played an amazing Ripley.
Strong female role model.
Yes, and we hadn't really seen a lot of that up until then. I mean, we'd seen Princess Leia, but she wasn't really that strong in the movie. She was always being saved.
Yeah.
And this was her leading the charge, killing the aliens, saving humanity. So that's why it made my list. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Ripley was a ass kicker. I mean, she was just going out, killing aliens left, right, and center, and it was fantastic to watch as a kid. And I have to agree, I'd say 90% of my friends that have enjoyed Aliens and seen Aliens, they saw that first. They had no idea the movie Alien came out. But it's because these are two different types of movies, really. You look at Alien, that's a standalone horror film, which was revolutionary in its way. I mean, it had John Hurt as the first ever person to have an alien burst out of his chest, which was just terrifying to people in the 70s and 80s, early 80s when it came out.
And now improv artists all over the world pretend all the time.
Exactly. And it's been made fun of countless times in movies and cinema. But when you look at Aliens, I mean, that was an action film that was never done before. I mean, Ridley Scott just blew the lid off of it. It was just action adventure, these creepy, scary aliens coming out of the woodwork, but it was more relatable to kids, you know. And at that time, I was, you know, junior high, and this was the movie I wanted to see in theaters with my friends. It was a big blockbuster movie versus Alien, which was a standalone small movie. So two different movies, but it really blew the lid off.
And you know, when you said it's the movie you wanted to see with your friends, that really resonates with me too, because I think up until this point, I've been going to most movies with my family because, you know, you had to have a parent go with you or an older sister. And this, I think, was one of the first movies that I ever got to go with my friends. So I think that probably has a lot to do with why I really like it too.
Mm-hmm.
I should tell our viewers that if anything comes up on our list that are the same, and Jason has it listed higher than me, or I have mine listed higher than him, we're going to say punt. And what that means is we're going to wait until it gets to the higher part of the list because we want to give it its due. Because if he's got a movie listed higher than mine, we'll wait until it's his to talk about it.
That's right.
So hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it will eventually. So my number 8 movie is E.T. from 1982. Now, this movie, again, right in the middle of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, but I went to this movie with my mom, my sister, cousins. There was probably 20 of us that went, and a lot of kids in the theater. And the first time I saw this movie, I was like, oh, this is okay. This isn't anything great. But years later, when I went back and I rewatched it on DVD, I rewatched it again when it came out on digital. That's when I really started to love this movie. I really think it stands the test of time as far as the messaging it sends. Yes, the special effects look awful now that we see what's in today's world. But for its time, the special effects were amazing. The messaging was amazing. And I think it was really the first time we had seen an alien that wasn't out to kill us.
Yeah.
It was actually
sympathetic.
Yeah, we were sympathetic to the alien's plight. And I think that's why I love it the most, because it was these kids are so innocent and they're helping it. And yet, you know, the government, they want to come in and they want to study it, cut it open, tear it apart. And so to see that kids could actually make a difference and help this alien get home really gave me a sense when I was a child that, you know what, anything's possible.
Yeah. And it was a very mixed message at the beginning because you just see keys, which represented government. It was the unknown. It was this scary narrative, really. And the aliens were terrified of us. They were running in fear. They were scared. They were hiding from humans. You never saw that before. You never thought it could go the other way around. And it was just such a relatable character. To this day, I show my son E.T., and he's even touched by it. He's moved by it.
So he gets it even all these years later.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
He just saw it last year for the first time, and he was, wow, yeah, that's amazing. And he can talk about E.T. now, and it transfers. And when I was a kid, I first saw it, I was moved by it. I mean, I had a different effect than you. I was crying, like, poor E.T.
Well, and I think I wanted to look strong in front of all my cousins. There's a lot of guys there, so I probably didn't get the whole sense of the movie at the time, because you're a kid. Oh, I'm not going to cry in front of my cousins. But years later, I will tell you, I had a few tears coming in my later years. I'm not going to tell you how old I was, but last week. So those are my 10, 9, 8. Jason, we're going to go to your number 10 now.
Okay. Well, my number 10 was actually heavily influenced by Aliens, and I only bumped it off because I think the relatability with today's audience and how I've changed as a moviegoer was Edge of Tomorrow, actually. So Edge of Tomorrow, very interesting movie. You're talking about time traveling, resetting the day. You know, Tom Cruise is this guy who's in PR. He's forced in the military, and he's forced to relive the same day over and over again during an alien attack, this alien swarm that would seem unbeatable. So he just restarts the day over and over and over again until he gets it right. And it's so reminiscent now of modern day video games, where you just hit the reset button, go again. And the comedy and humor that he puts into it was really fun. I think Tom Cruise has done a lot of interesting sci-fi movies lately. When you look at Minority Report, did a great job in that. And I just wanted to have one good honorable mention on my list about that for overall, I think that was a really fun movie, and it moved well, and it was a great experience.
So I have to tell you honestly, I've been meaning to see this movie. I haven't seen this movie yet, but when I saw the trailer, all that came to my mind was Groundhog Day. I mean, I love Tom Cruise. I think he's a great actor, and he's had some great movies, some not great movies. But when I saw that trailer, I was like, oh, Bill Murray, but in sci-fi. So that was the reason I stayed away from this. But if it made your top 10 of all time, I'm going to have to see it.
Everybody I showed that movie to thought, well, that was fun. That was a fun movie. Even people who are typically critical of Tom Cruise movies or critical of more modern sci-fi movies were like, that was a lot of fun. That was interesting. Because, again, it had a really strong female lead in it, which I think you'll really appreciate. And you could see Ripley channeled through the female protagonist in this movie. It was really well done.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to see this. What's your number 9?
Number 9, Raiders of the Lost Ark. A classic.
Wow. Okay. Before we get into talking about this, I didn't put any of the Indiana Jones movies on my list, only because I kind of think of them as real, not sci-fi. Like I know in Raiders, there's that part at the end where, all the spirits are coming out of the ark and melting faces. And yes, I guess it is sci-fi. And I love the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love Temple of Doom. I love all the Indiana Jones with the exception of the newest one that came out.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Okay, good. So yeah, go ahead. Just wanted to let the viewers know why there's no Raiders any on my list. But
I mean, again, this was just at a time where movie making was really magic in a way, because you had people reinventing the genre with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, working together on this movie for the first time with Harrison Ford, fresh off of Star Wars success, and there was such excitement about it, and the way that it re-evoked these locations that actually had long-lasting effect on other films, i.e. Stargate. Well, we could talk about that all day long. So Raiders of the Lost Ark really influenced a lot of movies to this day, I believe, and it had such a tremendous effect because, it was an action-adventure film, but in the end analysis, there was a spirituality about it. There was this fantasy and sci-fi element. There was the edge, right? It was on the edge that you'd see it, and it was this ominous buildup that you would always fear. When's it going to happen? What's going to happen? The unknown. So moreover, it's not specifically sci-fi, but
no, I could definitely see why it's on your list. It definitely is in that realm. And the thing for me about Raiders, it did two really revolutionary things in film, I think. It had a film within a film. So that first opening scene, what is it, like 10, 12 minutes? The mini film within the film was what hooked me because I'm watching this adventure and I'm like, oh, where's this going to go? And it was so action-packed at the beginning. I'm like, oh, wait, it's over. The movie's over. Oh, wait, no, it's not. So to me, that was such a hook.
Mini serials of the 30s.
Yes, 40s. Exactly. Yeah. And the other big thing I think this movie did, and I'm sure other movies did it, none are coming to mind, but it showed such great supporting cast in such small roles, but they were able to develop the character so fast that you cared about it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of new movies don't do that the way that Spielberg did in this movie. He developed characters so quickly that I loved them.
And the magic they brought to his characters. This was a heck of an anti-hero when you think about it. I mean, he seduced an underage girl as his female lead. He shot a guy instead of having this drawn-out whip versus sword fight, though it turns out he was sick that day.
Yeah, so he had the flu.
Had the flu. Can I just kill him?
I don't have time to play with the swords and the whips.
Which hero does that? It's like, no, I'm not doing that. It was a really entertaining character because it was like, oh, he's not really a good guy. He's not a bad guy, but he's like a grave robber that works for a museum.
Yeah. So, no, absolutely. And I think Raiders of the Lost Ark really takes us into a world of that archaeology story, finding, treasure hunting as a kid that really opened my mind to what archaeology was.
Exactly.
And it probably sent a lot of people on their career path. I know a couple people that wanted to be archaeologists, they just weren't smart enough. But so, great movie.
Yeah.
So what's next?
I'd say, actually, number 8, Stargate. That's why Raiders sort of links into Stargate.
Okay, we're punting this one.
No problem.
This is much higher on my list, so we're going to have to punt. So that takes us to my number 7 film. So my number 7 film is Armageddon from 1998. And before, I knew he was going to laugh. Before you go there, yes, cheesy. Yes, completely never going to happen. Aerosmith. Even Liv Tyler, horrible actress in this movie.
Yeah.
there's a few reasons why it made my list. One, every time it comes on television, I'm sucked into watching it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what makes a good movie. Yeah, it's cheesy, but every time it comes on TV, I want to watch it again because this foreshadowed 9/11. If you look at the opening sequence of this, it's showing the two twin towers
Yeah.
with holes in them burning. And I'm telling you, when I saw 9/11 happening in the real world, I thought, oh my God, that's the opening scene to Armageddon. When I first turned on my TV that morning, I thought, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is real. This is awful. And I'm not trying to compare the theater to real life. I'm just saying that the special effects in this movie were incredible. I really liked Bruce Willis in this film. I thought he brought a really great performance for this movie. And all in all, I think that this taught a lot of kids back then that a meteor did hit the Earth. I'm sorry for all of those people that think it didn't. And, 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs were not wiped out by a plague or by a cold, or they were wiped out by something pretty significant. So, yeah, that's why this is on my list. I can't really defend it more than that. Jay, what do you think?
It was a fun action film. You're right. It was a lot of fun to watch. There was blaring scientific oddities in it, but every sci-fi film has that. I mean, every sci-fi film you can pick apart for technical unrealism. But Armageddon was a fun movie. I watched it. That's definitely a movie I can watch over and over again. It's just a popcorn movie.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Stuff your face full of popcorn and say,
and there's a lot of classic
now.
lines in that movie, right? Yeah. So it was fun. And Steve Buscemi is funny in that. So there's some fun parts.
Steve Buscemi is probably the best part of that movie when he's sitting on there riding.
Just want to feel the power.
Yeah, just want to feel the power between my legs, brother. So. Yeah, again, I know you guys, I just want to reiterate that nobody's right or wrong. He might like a movie, I might like a movie, but movies are subjective, and that's why we talk about them. So my number 6 is Independence Day, 1996. So this is the original Independence Day. We've got Bill Pullman in it. He's playing the president. Will Smith, probably his first big breakout role.
That was it for him. That made it.
Yeah, that made him. And again, I love the alien ship in this. I love this thing that's coming in, and they actually show for the first time how destructive coming through the Earth's atmosphere something that giant would be. Yeah. It was on fire. It was the clouds were parting.
It evokes V.
Yes.
Miniseries V, right?
Exactly. One of my favorite miniseries of all time.
Original, not new.
Oh, God, no. No, original, definitely. But this movie... I liked, again, the emotional roller coaster that we were on with all the different characters. There was so many characters and so many subplots in this movie. And when you have that in a movie, it really makes me pay attention. I don't get bored with, this is just one person. We're following the story of one arc. No, this movie had a little bit of everything you wanted. It had Brent Spiner in it, from Data, playing a really small role.
Star Trek cameo.
Absolutely. You had the kids' plight where they're trying to get away. You had Bill Pullman as a former pilot. You had this crazy guy that was the kids' parents. Comedy relief in the movie. It had everything that I need to make a movie great.
Jeff Goldblum was hilarious.
Yes. Now, did he do this movie before or after Jurassic Park, the first one? I think it came after, right?
Yeah, I think this was after.
And
yes.
So he was riding the high of Jurassic Park to come into this film. So I think that got a lot of bums in seats too.
Yeah, name recognition really worked.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my number 6. Anything to add about Independence
Day? That was a great movie. It was a lot of fun. Speaking of a movie you could watch over and over again, I watched that movie at least 24 times during the 90s and early thousands. It's pretty dated now. It doesn't stand up, but it's still a heck of a lot better than the sequel, which I have not seen yet. I've just heard nothing but...
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't waste your money. Wait till it's on TV for free. And you don't have to wash your hair that day, because I'd rather wash my hair than watch this movie.
Yeah, but for the money, for my money, between the two, definitely the older one. From everything I've heard about the new one, but especially because the bad guys were bad. Like, there was unstoppable. Like, you throw nukes at them and there was no effect. They'd destroy entire cities with one shot. It was a very daunting enemy.
Yeah. Okay, so now I've done my number 6. So Jay, what's your number 7? Oh, your 8 was Stargate. We funded. Yeah. So what's your 7?
Actually, my 7 is sort of along the lines of yours, an alternate world. It's not so much sci-fi. It's more fantasy of alternate world, a dystopian future. Road Warrior, 1981 1. It was the second movie.
Great film.
Yes, in that original trilogy. And really, a lot of people had never seen the first movie anyways because it was such a independent, limited release.
I hadn't.
Yeah.
Road Warrior was my introduction.
Same. Yeah, exactly. I walked into it like you walked into Aliens. I walked into Road Warrior and I was like, wow. And this was just an action adventure film. And again, very adult. You can't really get away with the themes in movies today that you could then, which is kind of funny. You see some pretty rough stuff in Road Warrior. You see some pretty rough stuff in the original Alien versus what you'd see today.
Everything's so politically correct now.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it. It ties filmmakers' hands and they're not ready to jump over that cliff and say, I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
I'm making the movie I want to make.
Yeah.
And back then, this movie was the movie they wanted to make.
And it was so well done. I mean, this was just a future to fear. It was terrifying. But in a way, it was just this heroics and this guttural survival. It was people fighting over canned cat food and apocalyptic future to an extreme where oil was such a commodity that wars were being fought over, which goes today. And really,
they were fighting over water and oil, right?
Yeah. Well, the newer one I think was more water, but the older one was just oil.
Okay.
Yeah, because there was the survivors that had an oil refinery, and then all the roving gangs wanted it, and that was really interesting. It was terrifying enemies, amazing action, and really a stand-up anti-hero. Again, he'd leave people to die in the desert rather than save his own skin. But this was a former cop, so you had this duality to the character that you couldn't understand, and it was interesting.
And it's funny. This movie sent apart a role-playing game. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Aftermath.
Oh,
and so they developed the role-playing game Aftermath, which is like Dungeons and Dragons. And me and my friends played it a lot when we were kids. Right after this movie came out, we got the game Aftermath. So lots of Saturday night geek sessions with Slurpees and chips playing Aftermath.
Wow.
And you'd always try to make yourself look like the Road Warrior and get your car all done up because it was cool.
And the cars were really cool.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, this was coming out of the Hot Wheels era of kids, and you're playing with cars, and then you see these cars done up. Wow, are they done up? And his car was the best of all, right? And it's super souped up and amazing Charger engines.
I actually took a soldering gun to some of my Hot Wheels and took pieces of metal and soldered them on to make my own Road Warrior cars.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. This movie influenced me when I was a kid a lot.
Going next, actually, Starship Troopers. And really, this is a movie that might be controversial to you, but I found this movie fantastic on so many levels because of the depth of it, right? At first, you think, oh, this is just a popcorn movie, and it doesn't stand up technically speaking with the digital effects to today, but nevertheless, I think this was a movie that was really harkening back to the Nazi propaganda movies of the 30s. Leading up to that Nazi regime, and there was a lot of subversion in this movie because I can rewatch this movie 100 times and find something new about it because it was so interesting when you look at it. We found a criminal this morning, we convicted him this afternoon, tonight we execute him. This was a
judge, jury, execution.
Exactly, and this was again, they're supposed to be protagonists, but as you're watching the film, you realize maybe these aren't actually the good guys. Maybe the aliens, these evil bugs that they keep saying only a good bug is a dead bug, are actually the good guys, and the humans are pure evil. But it's always shown from the good guys' point of view, which makes you think about other movies you see and other propaganda we see in day-to-day television. Is our government the good guys? Really? Is our army the good guys on the right side? Really? I thought this film was very deep.
Now, I've only seen this movie once, and it was a long time ago. And I enjoyed the movie when I saw it. I didn't like the aliens, to be honest with you, the bugs. I didn't think the bugs were that great. I thought they were kind of easy to kill.
I don't know.
Well, no, but there's millions of them coming, and they keep mowing them down, and then more are coming. And
if anything, I think that film might have just had enough gunfire for some gunfire enthusiasts. When you think of the sheer amount of bullets fired in that film, and it'd be like, I'm running low. They shot like 2,000 rounds. Oh, my gun's running low. Like, wow.
I did like this movie. Like I said, I've only seen it the once. I might have to revisit it again because if it's that high on your list, you saw something in it that made you watch it over and over and over
just
again.
The message. I think, do you want to learn more? I thought that interesting, like Prelude to the Internet, and on how everybody's focused online and how there's focused messages that you can get. It's just interesting.
And I know it's a cult classic. I mean, this movie has gone into those cult classics that everybody talks about and everybody sees. So I'll definitely give it a revisit because, you never know. One thing I want to tell our viewers, too, if you really hated a movie, but you're hearing all your friends years later talk about this movie and say it was great, you might have been having a really bad day the day you saw it. And your personality and your frame of mind that day can influence how you like a movie. So go back, revisit it. That's what I'm going to do with Starship Troopers. So that was your number 6. So now we're going to do my number 5. So my number 5 is Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country from 1991. This movie, to me, I knew it was going to be, I thought it was going to be the last of the Star Trek movies with Kirk, Spock, McCoy. And so I think I went into this with a little sentimentalism when I was in. And for me, that's what made this film so great, was you were seeing a lot of things wrapped up in this movie. You were seeing they were all going to retire. It opens with them. They got 3 months till retirement. Then you got Spock stepping in and telling Kirk, "Oh, I'm going to vouch for you on this." And we had Kirk's kid killed by Klingons.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Kirk has to go meet with the Klingons and create peace between the Federation and the Klingon Empire, which we know happened because we've already seen Star Trek Generations, and they're showing a completely different world. So to go back and see how that happens,
Genesis of it,
and see that Kirk is involved, okay, this is cool, I'm in. You hooked me in the first 10 minutes.
All those levels of the Cold War tensions going on at the same time.
Yes, exactly. So then we get into, Spock and basically it's a Spock movie, I guess you could say, because Spock has to find out all over the Enterprise, taking over the Enterprise, how he's going to save Kirk. And the way that they wrap it up at the end of the movie, I was really happy with. I would have been happy if this was the last time we saw Kirk, Spock, all of them. He goes second star to the right and straight on till morning from Peter Pan. Just so many great things they took from the original series, wrapped it up very nicely for me. I didn't need Star Trek 7 Generations with Kirk in there with Picard. I didn't need that tie-in. No, it was hollow. I liked the movie for certain parts, but I didn't need to see Kirk die. I thought it would have been much better if we always wondered how he died, sailed off into the sunset. Probably not critically the best Star Trek movie out there, but it's my favorite, and that's why it's number 5 on my list.
It's a good choice to tie off the series, really, because you're right. I mean, and there was a lot of actual political things going on at that time. The Berlin Wall had just fallen, and you're seeing, the West and the Soviet Russian bloc get together. So really, it was a mirror of that in the Star Trek movie with the Klingons and the Federation, and who better to go to China than Nixon?
Yeah,
it was very well done, I thought too. It was an interesting twist to it. I mean, I'm not such a fan of Klingon, Shakespeare in the original Klingon. I was kind of confused by that, but
I think that's how it was meant to be, though. It was a joke. He's making the joke, lighten the mood.
Not contest us yet, but I did see, and you got to see a lot of more fleshed out Klingon characters in that versus you never really see them. There was very two-dimensional characters before that, and you saw a little bit more of the Klingon homeworld. You saw a good cameo of Worf in there, Worf's grandfather, great grandfather. It was interesting. I agree. It was a fun film.
Well, and Christopher Plummer playing, oh God, I can't remember his name right now. The head Klingon, Christopher Plummer, General Chang.
Chang, yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, so he's playing General Chang, and Christopher Plummer and William Shatner were at the Stratford School at the same time learning how to act. Yeah, they were old acting buddies from the Stratford in Ontario. Little Canada shout out there. And so for them to do this movie together, they were super excited. Like Shatner begged and pleaded to get Plummer in this role. And they said, yes, we'll do it, because he didn't really want to do it. He was like, I'm not so sure I want to put on all this makeup every day and be a Klingon. But when you got William Shatner, who's your old acting buddy, saying, come on, do this movie, he did it. So that I was really excited about that. And all in all, I think it's just a great Star Trek film. Yeah, I think you could have taken it and made it a 2-part episode in the original series. That's how much I like this movie.
It moved well.
Yeah, it moved well.
Okay.
So that was my number 5. What's your number 5?
Well, speaking of dystopian futures and the context of reality, Blade Runner, 1982.
Oh,
yes, dark dystopian future, raining dark. It's this mixed Asian and Western culture fusion taking place. It's always night, and it's the story of a human who's put on the trail of replicants of these robots that just want to survive. They just want to live, but to live.
By the way, wait, we're going to have some spoiler alerts here if you've never seen it, but this movie is so old, I don't care.
Yes, they're trying to subsist and escape and live in human culture in a fun, but human corporations that built these things put a best by date on it. They have a timer. They expire after so many years. So these androids are trying to find a way to survive, to extend their lives, so that these memories, and it really goes into the context of what is reality, what proves existence. And I thought that these characters were heartbreaking in a way, because really at the end scene, when Harrison Ford's taken out the bad guy replicant, or the bad guy robot, he looks up and says, all these memories are gone. I've seen starships burning off the rings of Saturn. All those memories are gone like tears in the rain. And that's just an emotional. And you think about that because, again, Harrison Ford meets a woman who she thinks she's human, but has no idea that she's a replicant, which opens it up, because if you've seen the director's cut, there's even more to it. There's points where the hunter may himself be a replicant.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Was Harrison Ford a replicant?
They left it wide open because they wanted to leave that hanging. And I mean, another great, the detective in the movie, his name escapes me now. He was on Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, I know who you mean, but we're not going to get his name.
Yes, exactly. He did an amazing job as well, because he'd always leave the origami clues, and that was really a really big clue left by the director, and saying, is he real himself? Like, nobody in this film is who they seem to be in a real sense. It makes you wonder about what is real, what is the nature of reality, makes me human.
See, and the thing I loved about this movie is it's the first time in science fiction not everybody was rich. It was the poor of the poor underworld. Yeah. We were seeing seedy backwater streets. Yeah. I love that. And, but we're watching Star Wars and everybody's in these beautifully polished ships, and except for the Millennium Falcon, we'll give that a pass. But, all these Empire ships, we're seeing these beautiful sparkling cities and lakes. And this is not clean. And this is real life. This is probably what it will look like in the deep, deep future. Yeah. Because things are just going to go to the wayside. But the thing that I didn't like about this movie was it dragged in some places. And you got to be in the right frame of mind to watch this movie. I've probably seen it 10 times. And
that's good.
6 of those 10 times, I bet you I didn't make it to the end.
Oh.
And not that it's a bad movie. I just need to be in the right frame of mind to see it. So I'll think, I'm going to watch Blade Runner again. This is going to be awesome. And I'll get about an hour and a half in. I'll be like, I don't need to finish watching it. So
it's not a happy-go-lucky.
No, it really isn't. you got to be in a really retrospective mood. You have to have had a really busy week, and you just want to take your mind out of the real world for a couple hours. That's my opinion of Blade Runner. But I love the movie. Definitely didn't make my list because I didn't say punt. But you know what? All those points you made, incredible.
All right.
So that was your number
5.
Okay, so my number 4 is Return of the Jedi. So not my favorite of the Star Wars films, but definitely going to tell you that I always fight back and forth with what's my favorite Star Wars film. Is it Empire Strikes Back or is it Return of the Jedi? When I made this list, Return of the Jedi wasn't my favorite. We'll get to why later. But in Return of the Jedi, the thing that I liked near the end is that you had 3 separate battles going on in the whole universe. I don't think I've seen a movie that did that before.
Never.
And you've got the Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and the Emperor on the Death Star. Mm-hmm. You've got the battle on Endor, where they're trying to get the shield down. And you've got the spaceships up top, which is the best because you see it out the Emperor's window, and they're all fighting, and then you actually get into the story. Yeah. Not to mention, Luke is grown up now. He's not this whiny little boy on Tatooine anymore that is mad because he can't go get power converters from Tashi Station. But we've got Luke Skywalker. He's now a Jedi. He's fighting with his lightsaber. He's using Jedi mind tricks. Mm-hmm. He's now taken over the role of Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. And so for all of these reasons, Return of the Jedi is definitely, like I said, I always go back and forth with Jedi Empire, but I think Return of the Jedi is the second best of the Star Wars films.
Yeah, because Luke grew up. He's gone into the role that his father had. He had the same choices, but he's choosing a proper path. But he's all in black, so you never know which way he's going to fall. It's a lot of iconic imagery in that movie. Except for the Ewoks, I'd say all the battle scenes were amazing.
And I love the Ewoks. I love the Ewoks. They're cuddly little teddy bears.
Yeah.
I was the age where I was like, I need 10 of these things, and I need them all around my room.
Well, and we've talked about this before in previous, how how George Lucas's actually intent was for the Ewoks to be like this third world nation, this renegade little Stone Age tribe fighting off an incredibly advanced space army, and with stone tools, and how it was reminiscent of the Vietnam War, how America was beaten by supposedly, a far inferior Stone Age society and it had those feelings he evoked, but it's really the little guy taking on the big guy in a way that they couldn't see coming, which was interesting in its way.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the other thing that a lot of people don't get about Return of the Jedi too is this was the first time that we actually see Princess Leia really come out of her shell. I mean, in Empire Strikes Back, you saw it a little bit in Hoth, but you didn't. This one, she's out there, she's shooting people, she's saving the day, she's on Endor pretty much leading the mission. I know it looks like Han Solo at the beginning, but she's really got the focus of what's happening down there.
She was taking charge. She was doing the alliances with the Ewoks. She was forging this whole thing together, really. She was the leader that she is.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. So that was my number 4.
Well, and one more note, I have to agree with you totally on this. Is first time ever that 3-tiered battle blew me away as well. And I haven't seen it emulated quite as well since. You've seen it in some of the new Star Wars movies where they tried that same dynamic, but that really pulled off the best of ever. Okay, so number 4 for me, Dark Knight, The Dark Knight.
Okay, before you start talking about this, I didn't put any superhero movies on my list because otherwise my list would have probably been 7 superhero movies. And this for sure would have been my number 1 sci-fi movie of all time. It's my favorite superhero movie, so go for it.
I mean, speaking of a movie that I can watch 1,000 times, I can't get enough of this movie.
I actually watched it last night.
Yeah, you can watch it over and over again and get something new every time. It's just so many dark turns and twists and corners, and really the brilliant portrayal of the Joker by Heath Ledger, and how that really affected the movie and twisted things about was just amazing. I mean, it was terrifying in the commercials where you'd hear there's nothing in his pockets but knives and lint, and you'd see him, and the way they built the music up, the way they built the tone and the mood up around this character, it was terrifying when he'd start speaking because you had no idea. He was pure embodiment of age and chaos because he didn't know what he was going to do next.
Well, and
pure violence, or
I started feeling sorry for him too at the beginning. I was like, okay, he keeps telling these stories about his mouth got cut, and you're like, which one's real?
Yeah,
like he told 3 different stories about that, and so not only am I sympathizing with this mastermind, crazy nut job of a villain, I'm watching Batman, and Batman's starting to doubt himself. Joker's putting doubts in Batman's mind. For the first time, we don't just see, oh, I'm Batman. This is Batman and Bruce Wayne doubting himself.
But that was always the proper dynamic in the comic books. Was Joker was the master manipulator, where Batman was just one-tone hero, and he would stand the course, and Joker delighted in trying to convert him, delighted in trying to corrupt him, and all he wanted in life was to make Batman a little bit more evil.
Well, and I don't know if we'll ever see a better Joker either. Because Heath Ledger really locked himself in a hotel room for a month to build this dynamic, but B, I think a lot of him dying before the movie came out also sent us in a different direction. I don't know if he would have won Best Supporting Actor that year if he hadn't have passed away. And I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. What I'm saying is that public perception around that character jumped tenfold when he passed away.
What was in the legend and mythos? You look at Bruce Lee, when he passed away, right before his big break, did that influence this break? Did it create this legend? Look at his son in The Crow, passed away just before The Crow came out. And again, would that movie have got the same release? Would it have got the same legend around it and mystique? I don't know, but I do know one thing, Heath Ledger nailed that role.
Absolutely. I think it's his best role ever. But again, I always wonder what would have happened if he lived, and would it have had the same, acclaim that it did?
Legend.
Yeah, the legend of Heath Ledger. So great movie. As I said, it would have been my number 1 if I put any superheroes on this movie.
All right.
Okay. So this is one we punted from. I think Stargate was your number 7.
Yeah.
So it's
8. Actually.
It's your number 8. It's my number 3.
Wow, you really like it.
I love this movie in certain parts, but what I love most about this movie is that it opens up a world of stories. It was brilliant. The guy who invented this idea of a wormhole that you can punch in 7 digits and go to any planet in the world. It opened up my favorite television series of all time, Stargate SG-1. 10 seasons of stories. I think they had over 300 episodes, all based on this movie. And my favorite part of this movie is the beginning. when they're figuring out how it works. They show we're in Egypt. We find this buried. Daniel Jackson's, looking, and he accidentally sees the horoscope and all the constellations, and he goes, "Oh, they're constellations." That part, not so big on the action part that comes after that when they first go through the gate, but then the story picks up again. I wish Richard Dean Anderson had actually been in the movie rather than Kurt Russell, because I didn't like Kurt Russell's portrayal. It was all stoic and staunchy and no real feeling until the end of the movie.
Hollywood guy.
Yes, He-Man Hollywood guy.
Yeah.
But the movie itself and the idea of Stargate just makes my mind go nuts.
I couldn't think of more anticipation of a movie ever.
Yeah.
When I saw the commercials leading up for Stargate and I thought about the potential for that, I thought to myself, oh my God, and you're absolutely right. Oh my God, they could go anywhere. This could open up universes upon universes. This is limitless, right? And I just was so excited about it.
And I'm so surprised they never did a sequel. Like, so many movies out of this. You could have had 10 movies. They went the TV route instead. I heard that they're thinking about doing a reboot movie, but they've been talking about this for 5 years now. I don't know if it's ever actually going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think a reboot would work as well, because really part of the adventure of that original movie was that we were all going on this journey together into the unknown, right? Even the government at that point, they were the good guys. They were going in and they were like, we just want to find out. At first, you're not sure of their intentions, but you realize, oh, well, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We can go through the scary wormhole because the U.S. government's with us, and we can trust them, and they've got our backs. And today, you remake that movie, it's going to be, a subcontracted evil corporation that works for this U.S. government, or it's going to be an evil part of the U.S. government, and they're going to, they want to steal the technology and rape this world's resources and all these horrible things now, and it wouldn't work the same.
No, it wouldn't at all.
Like, who's the real enemy in the new?
And I think we saw that later on in the TV show, because as they got more on into the TV show, Jack was always fighting with Command, and at the beginning, he's all military, U.S. government, but by the end, he was just like, you guys are out to lunch. Okay, so that was my number 3. What's your number?
Oh, Star Wars: A New Hope.
A New Hope, okay. Didn't make my list, but only because it wasn't the best movie in the trilogy. It should have made my list. I got to give it that honorable mention because it started it all. It started Star Wars.
Well, for the genuine inspiration, the genuine work that George Lucas put into that before he went crazy and made the prequels was fantastic because the work he put into it, how he was ripping off samurai movies and the old I mentioned it earlier, the old movies from the 30s, the daily serials, and all these amazing things that he put into it. He built a universe that to this day, like, millions of people are enjoying, and the work that he put into it. I thought that there was a vibrance, a freshness to it. That was just a good old fashioned popcorn movie. And versus, say, some of the later work in some of the other movies, like, this was good for kids of all ages, and people would come in. You could walk in blind in Star Wars. You wouldn't need any backdrop, you need any backstory, and it's just fun, enjoying, go home.
Well, and if we look back to 1977, I watched this movie now, and I still have the original release on VHS without all of the added special effects.
Yeah, I hated that.
Because you can't really judge this movie anymore whether it stands up to time because of all the changes they've made to it. So, but if you have an original copy, you can go back and watch the stop motion animation, all of the different things that Lucas did, and the model work.
Amazing.
And it does still stand up to this day. Star Wars, the original movie, if you can get an original cut, it stands up. And that was what was amazing. Lucas was revolutionizing the entire world of movies. He turned it over on its ass and said, this is now how we're going to make movies for the rest of the time.
Because before that, sci-fi movies were a joke. There were B movies. There would never be a major motion picture release. They were never taken seriously. It was, it'd have a limited release and you'd never see it again. And this just made the blockbuster. It's invented it. This and Jaws, of course, but this really made the blockbuster,
And it was my first movie in the theaters ever. And so it really influenced my life. I may not be such a sci-fi nerd today if I hadn't had this as my first movie going into the theaters. I think I was 7 years old, and
me too,
my older sister took me, and I begged her, please, I'll pay for your movie. I'll go to whatever movie you want to see next week. I've told this story before. I really paid for that because I had to go see Xanadu, which was an awful movie. But this movie inspired millions of people over countless generations, and it still is today. So, again, didn't make my list because the other two in that trilogy I think were better movies because it got better as it went along. But great movie. Good choice. So my number 2 is The Empire Strikes Back.
Great movie.
Is that on your list?
That's my number 1.
Okay, so we can talk about this because it's your number 1. So I'm going to let you start because it's your number 1.
Okay. Empire Strikes Back. I mean, this is where we really define the characters that we were first introduced in Star Wars. And I think this Empire Strikes Back had a better lasting impression and will be a longer lasting movie than Star Wars in a lot of ways because it was more adult. I mean, the Star Wars movie, it introduced everybody. It was kind of silly. It's kind of fun. But Empire Strikes Back, it was darker. It was more visceral, and the characters became more developed. I mean, to this day, I can show some people Empire Strikes Back who've never seen Star Wars before, and they get a reaction. I remember showing a female friend the scene, Star Wars, and when it came to the scene where Leia goes, "I love you," and Han goes, "I know," she yelled, "Bastard!" Right? It still translates, and that movie was just so well done. I mean, you look at and the fact that the direction, the way it was done, and the development of the stories, and how dark it got, and how interesting the character development was.
Well, and I think that had a lot to do with Lawrence Kasdan coming on the project,
not Lucas directing.
Not Lucas directing.
Exactly.
He changed the feel, and I think that's why we're going to have the same thing happen with Episode 8, because you bring in a director like Ryan Johnson. Yeah. Oh my God, that's going to take that movie to places. And that's what Kasdan did for Empire Strikes Back. But the thing I loved about this movie is it didn't end happy.
Yes.
Everybody's pissed off. Luke's hands cut off. Han Solo's in carbonite.
It left you on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
What a cliffhanger.
And we hadn't really seen that in a lot of movies up till that point. But Lucas and Kasdan, they took a chance. And again, did something completely different from Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I always judge, is it Jedi, is it Empire? Because it depends on the day. But yeah, this movie, top notch as far as plot development. Bringing in Lando Calrissian, great underrated actor at the time, but now just everybody knows what he can do and how great he was. Just throws that foil into the Leia hand thing. Oh, there's another guy. He's hitting on her. What's going on here?
And Luke and his father, you really get the development there, and it's this darker image. You know, not just you have to supplant your father, but you have to kill your father to survive.
And also, I just want to throw this out there. I saw the movie Pitch Perfect. That's not sci-fi. But she says Darth Vader. Vader is German for father. So how did we not all figure this out beforehand, Darth Vader? I guess maybe because we're kids. Darth Father is so. But I was surprised. I didn't see that coming when I was watching the movie. Did you?
Nope, so, definitely. I mean, that was a big plot twist of our youth.
Yeah. And went on. Irving Kershner. We just got Jason in the audience saying Irving Kershner. Tell me what you're thinking.
Not Lawrence Kasdan.
I thought Kasdan wrote it.
Kasdan wrote it, but
Kershner directed it. So apologizing. Thank you, Jason, our spot checker in the audience.
It's good to have fact check.
Yes, it is. But I knew Kasdan wrote it. And so Kershner, again, completely different the way he directs from Lucas. Fantastic movie. Your number 1, my number 2.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw all the sci-fi people out the window by telling you what my number 1 is because it's not Star Wars.
I got to do my number 2.
What? We didn't?
No.
Oh, okay. I shouldn't have jumped ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's fine. So my number 2, again, not top of my list, but damn good movie. And when you think of the genres of sci-fi, definitely worth mentioning Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Yep.
Definitely, I'd say one of our darker Star Trek films. It had such a lasting impact on the franchise. It killed off Spock. It nearly destroyed Kirk. And it was a throwback to the old original series where a bad guy came back. And something that Kirk thought he was doing right turns out to be so wrong. An entire civilization, an entire group of people were almost wiped off the face of the earth because of his negligence, because he never followed up, and the repercussions of what you can do follow you down. And this horrifying enemy that'll do anything to gain vengeance. And the lines, oh boy, did he chew up the scene. Ricardo Montalban chewed that scene up, the scenery so well with his lines.
And not my favorite of the Star Trek movies by any stretch of the means. I think this would come in at probably number 5 or 6 for me. But yes, great movie. Ricardo Montalban, I laugh every time I see this movie, though, because all I can think of is Fantasy Island and Tattoo.
But his fine Corinthian leather chest.
Yeah, not his real chest. As much as he wants to say that was his real chest. That was a plastic prosthesis, I think. But no, this movie, a lot of great things. We saw that Kirk was now finally not being the guy that was, I don't know if.
Yeah, he wasn't the young starfarer anymore. He had to get glasses. He couldn't read as well anymore. It was getting older and, facing retirement. He couldn't go out in the field anymore. He had to train newbies. What do I do with my life? What's my direction? Where do I go now?
Yeah. So I don't really have anything to add to Khan. You pretty much said it all.
Midlife crisis meets submarine movie when you think about it. Because that battle scene again at the end, fantastic. As a youth, as a kid, to watch that in theaters, wow, that was just stunning. Kept you on the edge because it wasn't like Return of the Jedi, where it had whizzing fast things flying by your face every 2 seconds, which really works in the ADD part of myself. But it made you suspense. It made you wait, where you could never see that starship, the strategies they'd move around. And that affected a lot of games I played as a kid as well. A lot of Star Trek ship battle games we played growing up. And that was a lot of fun because of that movie. But anyways.
All right. So we said his number one, Empire Strikes Back, which was my number two. So the last movie we're going to talk about, again, nobody's going to have expected this from me, but it is Back to the Future from 1989. This movie, again, is one of those movies I can turn on the television. Doesn't matter what time of the day, evening. If it's on, I have to watch it. I was a big skateboarder when I was a kid. Yeah. I loved oldies. Everything about this movie resonated with my personality. Just from the start of it, when he goes into Doc Brown's garage and turns on this amplifier and you don't know what the hell he's turning on, and then he gets out the guitar and hits it and it explodes in his face. That's the way to start a movie. A great big explosion, a guitar.
And Huey Lewis in the movie.
Huey Lewis in the news. Yeah. You know what? It was the biggest group at the time. I'm sorry.
It's a power of love, man.
I'm a nerd. I am a nerd. I've always said I'm a nerd. This movie rocks.
It was fun.
You get so many different ways. He's going back to the future. Mm-hmm. He's in 1955. He's got to kiss his mom. Gross. Everything that you think about time travel, this movie has, and a really cool DeLorean.
Yeah.
Come on. That was so car, cool. Yeah. Turning it into a time machine, that was pretty cool.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, and again, speaking of things that can open up anything, I mean, you can go anywhere in any time period. This could open up a whole franchise of movies, which it did in a way.
Which I wish it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like the two movies that came after. Again, this is one of those movies I wish they would have just left it alone.
Look at the debate raged around Back to the Future 2 and how some of the technological advances that they talked about in that movie are now reality today, and whether it influenced or not, like the Star Trek communicator influenced cell phones by Motorola, like a lot of things in that movie actually had an impact. So this movie has a big social impact.
Yeah, they're trying for hoverboards, but all I hear is they're exploding now.
Yeah, wheels and yeah.
So that's my number one. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Again, put in the comment section what you think of our list. Please be nice. Don't be too hard on me for having Back to the Future above Star Wars. I know Jason's going to give me a big hard time after we go off the air.
It's different.
If you want to email me, I'm at movieguySci-fi@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at movieguySci-fi. Thanks for coming on the show, Jason. And remember, everybody, nerds rule the world.